We're in Liverpool, just a stone's throw away from the new Everton Stadium at Bramley Dock, the home of the current Premier League champions, of course, in Liverpool. And it's the glitzy and glamorous live event to launch the start of the Premier League. So only right that we talk to the man in charge of the referees in the Premier League. Howard Webb's with us. Howard, thanks very much indeed for your time and for talking to us. Let's get straight into it. Rule changes for this year. I think the most obvious one that people will see, and they've already seen it in the EFL, is the change in the rules for the goalkeepers. This 8-second rule, they're only allowed to hold the ball for 8 seconds, otherwise a corner is given. Explain that to us. Why is it important? How's it going to be officiated?
Yeah, exciting times on the eve of a new season again in the Premier League. You're right, not that many changes in the laws of the game this summer. However, the one that you'll see the most of is that one with the goalkeeper. We've known, of course, that the laws have said forever that the keeper can hold the ball for 6 seconds, but you never saw that being penalised. And referees were allowing goalkeepers to hold the ball for longer. If you did penalise the goalkeeper, it came as a huge surprise, was highly controversial. So I think there was an understanding that we needed a reset around that aspect. Of course, when the goalkeeper's holding the ball, it's the only time it's not available to any other player and the clock is still ticking down. So the lawmakers had a look at it and decided that they would change from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. And if the goalkeeper hadn't released the ball after 8 seconds, then possession would transfer to a corner to the other team. Now, it's not meant to be punitive, it's meant to be preventative. It's all about getting the ball back into play. So far we've seen it in a few games in the EFL and obviously in some other tournaments during the summer. Seems to have done what it's meant to do.
Nobody's been penalised in the EFL so far, have they?
No, there's been nothing in the EFL so far, so goalkeepers have been releasing that ball. The referees will look at when the keeper collects the ball, control possession, the attackers are not hindering his ability to release the ball, and at that point the count will start and they'll indicate 5 seconds with their arm so the keeper knows where they are, and then if the keeper holds the ball for longer than 8, then the corner will be given. But like you said, so far the keepers have responded well, the ball's back into play, and it's all about that flow and momentum of the game, I guess.
There's been a couple of other technical changes with drop balls and that sort of thing, which I'm not going to take your time with now. People can look that up on the Sky Sports app if they want to see more detail on that. But one of the other big ones will be the referees addressing the crowd, which we saw trialled in the Carabao Cup. Seemed to work quite well. But you're very keen to explain that this is referees explaining VAR decisions to the crowd, not trying to justify them. Is that right? Yeah,
it's giving information to the fans in the stadium, those really crucial people that are there watching the game, creating that great atmosphere, who, have told us, they feel like they're the ones who know the least about what's happening, and by having this announcement by the referee, the fans will be able to follow the narrative of the game in a much better way. We've trained the referees hard so that they're able to confidently deliver those messages, which will basically give the information to the fans, obviously to the players and coaches as well, about what the referee has seen at the screen, what the decision is being changed to. We've seen it working well elsewhere, and we think it's going to be a useful addition in our drive continuously to give information to the fans. We do it on TV where we can, and we're now going to do it in stadium as well.
I want to ask you about this captains only rule. Now, this doesn't mean that other players on the pitch can't go and talk to the referee, but it means in certain circumstances the referee can say, look, I'm only going to talk to the captain in this instance. Is that right? Do you want to explain that to us?
Yeah, and we absolutely want to continue having that relationship with the players. Our officials and players will speak to each other throughout the game. It's all part of the relationship that they have, and it's a pretty positive one normally in English football. But on occasions we do see those situations, a big decision happens, the referee gets surrounded by angry players. That's not what you want to see. It doesn't set the best example. And we now have this option within the laws of the game to adopt this captains only approach, whereby players will not surround the referee, but the captain will be engaged by the referee. The referee will give some rationale for the decision that's been taken, maybe give some information around what the VAR is doing in terms of checking that incident. It's been tried in other top leagues around Europe, around the world. It's worked pretty well. It worked well in the Euros last year in Germany, and again in the Women's Euros. We think it's a positive. We think it's going to ensure that the image that's presented by the professional game is a positive one, and that will have a positive consequence as well for those copycat behaviours that we see sometimes at grassroots levels.
I need to ask you about VAR more generally, Howard, because it was controversial when it was introduced. It's maintained its controversial status, even though you've got no end of stats that say it's working. Decisions are getting quicker and more decisions are being got right. How frustrating is that for you, that even though you think it's working and you've got the evidence to show it, that isn't necessarily the experience and what a lot of football supporters believe?
Yeah, there's no doubt that progress has been made in the last couple of years. We've seen improvements statistically, anecdotally, the messages that I get back from players, coaches, clubs. We consult a lot with fan groups as well. Tells us that we are getting better. We're getting better in recognising when clear errors happen. We're getting better at being quicker as well. There's always room for further improvements, and of course one of the things that we always have to remember is that our game is played sometimes in shades of grey. It's played in situations whereby an outcome will split opinion 50-50, and in those situations we've said to the game, because we've listened to it extensively, we'll not get involved. We'll use VAR in those situations where something is really clear. But of course that doesn't mean that you're always going to agree with the final decision. If a situation splits opinion 50-50, you might be in the 50% of the people who think the on-field decision is wrong, but there's another 50% who think it's right, and in those situations we'll leave it as the referee's call. So we think over the last couple of years we've really improved. We've listened to the game, we've listened to people's expectations about how VAR should be used. We've trained really hard, identified people who can do this consistently well. We'll continue doing that. We'll continue being laser focused in providing the best possible VAR service to the Premier League, in line with the expectations that we're being asked to be in line with. But don't ever think that you'll agree with every final outcome, because that's just not possible.
Quicker decisions, more decisions correct. You've got some stats on that.
Yeah, we've seen VAR errors reduced by about 50%. That's based on judgments of an independent key match incident panel. That's ex-players, ex-coaches who look at all of our work and make judgments about whether we're right or wrong on the field and in our use of VAR. So that's pleasing to see those errors come down, and also efficiency has got better as well. Obviously some of that is because of the use of semi-automated offside technology at the back end of the season. We'll have that from match round 1 this season. But our constant drive is trying to be quicker all of the time. We want to reduce the price that VAR comes with. There's lots of benefits. It means we don't leave clear and obvious errors on the field in the way that would happen if we didn't have VAR. But we want to get to that position as quickly as we can, while still being diligent and making sure we do the job properly. So all of that is the focus of our training. It's about trying to be as quick as we can, maintaining the accuracy and reducing those errors. And if we're stood here next year, as I expect to be, with less errors, with greater efficiency, then I'll be happy, but always continuing in that direction.
It strikes me that VAR is here to stay. That's very clear, not just in the Premier League, but in leagues around the world as well. And FIFA seems to be suggesting that they want to increase the use of VAR. So this is something fans are going to have to get even more used to, I suppose. You're employing more and more specialist VARs. You've brought, I think, 7, is it, through from the EFL to now work in the Premier League as specialist VARs. So how do you see that VAR going forward from here? Do you expect FIFA's ideas to look at corners and whether those decisions have been made correct? Do you expect those to be starting to be introduced in our game?
Well, I think there needs to be consultation, there needs to be discussion with all stakeholders about what VAR is for, how it should be used. Of course, it's been in for some time now. It's only natural that we'd examine it collectively to see, is it being used in the best possible way? Can it be extended? Should it not be extended? I think that can only happen through that consultation with everybody who's involved in the game, including, of course, the fans as well. I think the message here in the English game has been that less is more, generally speaking, in VAR, and we've fallen in line with that. But we'll take part in consultation, and we'll keep reflecting on whether or not the use of VAR is where it needs to be. Should it stay where it is? Should it be expanded? That will all be part of the discussion. Of course, if you're going to change it, there's ripple effects, there's knock-ons. You have to think about those as well when you're making any change. So we'll play a part in that consultation. We'll play a part in those discussions with the International FA Board, with FIFA. But part of that will be listening to our fans here in England about how they expect VAR to be used, listening to the clubs, players, captains, managers, all those important stakeholders that we're here to serve, and only then will we commit to one particular side or the other.
Howard, absolute pleasure to see you. Thanks very much indeed for your time. That's Howard Webb, the chief of the man in charge of all of the English referees. They're ready for the season. The players are ready for the season. It all kicks off on Friday, live on Sky Sports, with Liverpool, the reigning champions, against Bournemouth.